Yeah, so we were watching Tim Pool, was it yesterday or one of the recent ones? He showed the statistics of like the number of people moving out of blue states and where
Yep.
everyone is moving to. And Florida's like had over, God, I want to say it was like, I mean, this is probably not right, but it was like 20,000 people have moved to Florida over the last like 2 years or something.
Yeah, I watched that same episode. It wasn't it. Yeah, it's like nuts.
I thought he said it was like close to like 20,000 or something like that. And I was like, sweet Jesus, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I was like, but we were one of them. I mean, we haven't registered to be, we haven't switched over our driver's licenses or anything like yet. So we're probably not even counted in that number yet, but it was just like,
Yeah, there's some weird stuff going on. So like, I think in that episode, he also mentioned like you can't, maybe no, it wasn't him. It was Glenn Beck was talking about the housing market in Texas. They've been trying to hire people and move them close to where their studio is. And they said there is nothing available for sale for people to get even close to where they're working, just because there's been such a massive influx of people moving to the state. And one of the problems is that they're facing is these companies like BlackRock and there's like 4 or 5 big, huge companies that are buying property, and they're offering like $75,000 above the asking price.
Yep.
And it's just destroying the housing market.
I don't know. So my friend in Oregon, when she first heard about that, about BlackRock buying up housing in like high demand areas, like over the price, she had, because Tom was helping her sell her house, she was like, hey, can you reach out to them and see if my house is of interest? Because she's literally like a block off of Hawthorne.
Right.
So super popular area. Her house is going to go on the market alone, it's going to go for $1 million. I mean, it's a big house. It's like 5 bedrooms or whatever. It's pretty big. And she's got an actual yard for the kids. So she's probably going to make, a relatively good money. But anyway, so she was like, hey, if I can get, I'll sell my house to BlackRock. So Tom called, and the lady who answered the phone, or whoever answered the phone, was like, I've had so many calls about the same thing because of some article that was posted. I don't know if it was like the New York Times or wherever it was posted, but she was like, that's not us.
Interesting.
So yeah. So I don't know if they misquoted the company or there's a different company with a similar name. The person that Tom talked to didn't have any idea. But she was getting an influx of like calls about the same thing. So she was like, that's not us. We don't deal with that.
Just China. So China's buying all the homes.
Maybe. But yeah, what they're doing, I don't know, did you say this, that they're changing them into Section 8 housing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't say that, but I've heard that they're turning it into rentals for part of this like great reset to where you will own nothing and you will be happy.
Yep. And they're doing residential homes, but they're also doing like largely multifamily. They're looking for apartments and condos and things like that, buildings. Because my friend, she was like, she actually has a friend who's a property investor, and she was talking to him. That's why she had Tom call the BlackRock people. He had sold a couple properties to them. Now, obviously, different BlackRock. I don't know who specifically it was, but he had said that they had offered him, because he has a bunch of rentals all over the West Coast. He sold the multifamily homes to them for like way over the market value.
Cool. I mean, that would be
good for him, but also,
I would love to sell and get like, twice or, significantly more than what our home is worth. But my biggest concern is what if we can't find something to buy
right
somewhere else?
Right.
I mean, just hearing like Texas, you can't even get, property. Maybe that's not true for the outskirts because we're more concerned of the rural areas.
Yeah.
But that'd be my
Yeah.
big concern.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know, man. There's a lot of interesting things happening right now.
Yeah, there is. I'm just looking for content to talk about, man.
I found
I
a
don't
few.
think it's going to be
posted-
hard to make videos to talk about stuff. I
No.
mean, even just what we were talking about, you can cut
I
that
know.
into a section. I noticed
I
what
know.
Tim Pool does is they'll record for like an hour to 2 hours. It seems like they do 2-hour segments, and then they've got topics that they cover, and then they chop out those topics, and then they'll repost them as like 10 to 15 minute videos of clickbaity titles.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the one that I posted that I'm finding really interesting, that I think also ties into, I think, a couple that you had mentioned. Where did I see you post it in the podcast videos, maybe subject ideas? Yeah, China hoarding half the world's grains. So interestingly, the number one thing that I found, and we can talk about this more later too when Chanel hops on, but they're talking about a fertilizer shortage coming up.
Yeah.
And like the big thing there is that it's going to highly affect the price of corn and soybeans. And it's the highest break-even price since 2012.
Wow.
Well, guess who was in office in 2012? The same person who's in office right now.
Yep. Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, not surprise.
Yeah. Surprise, not surprise. Like
so, but also I saw that, so they're also talking about the soybean price is going to be like exponential, and we're like, the US is having a shortfall of soybeans, which I don't eat soy products, so I'm like not affected by that, obviously, but I know there's a lot of people out there that do eat soy products, but
all the chicken, all the food for the birds.
we've been cutting soy out because she thought that she's sensitive to it, and they literally inject it into the chickens. So it's like everything is a soy product.
Yeah. And I mean, soy, based on science, has proven that it increases your chances of cancer. And most of our foods are like plastered, like soy is in almost every single food item that I ever read the labels to.
Yep.
So animal foods, like trying to find food that doesn't have soy in it is nearly impossible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it fattens them up and it's cheap.
Yep.
Not anymore. Not next year.
Yeah, it's not cheap, but it's cheaper than the soy-free versions.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So they were saying, so this other article I was reading also says that China is going to be increasing their production of soy so that they can ship it over to the United States.
Interesting.
So that also makes me wonder, like, how much we're going to have to be relying on China for some of the downfalls in our, grain production this year because of the fertilizers.
Yeah.
And they were even saying, this article I was reading, it was about Roundup. They're like, oh, even Roundup is going to be hard to come by. And I'm like, yes,
Good.
Roundup.
But they're also taking water rights away from the farmers at the same time. So that's creating, so the lack of fertilizers, the removing of water rights, they're creating a man-made shortage of all of these items.
Absolutely.
I don't hear a lot about that. I haven't heard anybody talk about that. Might be a good one to actually look into to see if
water
we can
rights.
find anything reported on, because that's one of those things. It's like, it's almost going under the radar, but it's going to affect the same thing next year in 2022 when there's an issue with fertilizer and there's a lack of imported goods. Our local farmers are being artificially restricted from producing.
Absolutely. And that's what I was literally thinking too. I'm like, this isn't going to hurt the big guys, right? Like, they're going to be like, well, I'll just increase my prices and I can buy the fertilizer and I'll just stock up now. But all of the farmers that Anara serves, the small farms, the hobby farmers, there's no way. They're basically squeezing them out. They're like, well, my grain that I feed my cows or pigs or whatever is just like doubled in price. So, I mean, hay prices are going to go up. I mean, all of that.
Yep. That's what we're
but
trying to
even
figure out.
more.
Because we're doing we're trying to do the prepper thing to where we're trying to stockpile, different stuff, just like grains and beans and lentils and stuff like that. And we're trying to figure out how the heck are we going to feed the animals if there's a situation where we can't even get access to their food. We're just
Right.
they're putting everybody in a situation to where, so you've got the farmers who don't have access, the big scale farmers. So like Busy Bee, they're big scale. They've got a couple hundred acres. They're not giving them access to their water, so they can't grow. They have a farmers market out there that I'm sure supplies a lot of food for this area of where we're at. And they're not going to be able. Are they going to shut that thing down? They're not going to be able to grow their pumpkin patch. They're not going to be able to do their tomatoes, their corn, their cucumbers, their any of those things.
And I've heard in Idaho they're having the same problem because the hay people aren't able to
without
their irrigation lines, because they've been shutting off the irrigation lines.
Wow.
In Idaho, and so that's why hay was down this year. Is that a lot of them, they weren't giving water rights and turning on the hay lines. Which I thought Idaho was like, pretty safe, but apparently, they've been messing with the farmers there. So like people in Idaho are like, for the first time, freaking out about where they're going to get hay. So they've been coming to here to get hay, which we usually go there.
Right.
Yeah.
So all of us here are going to have a hay shortage. I've heard from several different stores, like people that sell hay, that they're going to run out. Which we need to go pick some up as soon as the snow leaves.
Yeah.
Go fill back up our barn. It's still like mostly full, but I'm trying to keep it full enough that I can make it through the winter by the time they run out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, how would you, so the article I was saying was like, everybody should stock up on, grains and fertilizers and all this in anticipation of a shortage next year. Okay, well, I mean, is that even possible? Like, how do you safely store grain so it doesn't go bad, or plan ahead? Yeah. I mean, do you have to have like the big barrel buckets and like seal it somehow, or?
Yeah. So what we're doing is we're buying 50-pound bags and 4-gallon buckets. So you can go to, there's restaurants get a lot of their food and liquids delivered in, so they like Chinese restaurants will get soy sauce delivered in a 55-gallon barrel. And then they'll also get like eggs in like a 4-gallon bucket. So these are in abundance, and there's usually people in most areas that will go collect these from restaurants and clean them and resell them for dirt cheap. So we buy 4-gallon buckets it's $2 a bucket, comes with the bucket and the lid. They smell horrible, so you gotta clean them out. But we're going to the bulk stores. So right now, the best place for us to find like bulk beans is it used to be called, what was it? Cash and Carry. Now it's called US Chef's Store. Same store, just I think it changed names. But we can get like a 50-pound bag of pinto beans for $35, which is a pretty decent deal. So we're going there, we're getting those, and then we're filling up those 4-gallon buckets with those. And then depending on what it is that you're storing, go watch a YouTube channel on the different methods, because there's different recommendations for like storing flour versus rice versus beans and stuff like that. But that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if we should do a video on that.
I think we should.
Yeah. I mean, how do you store? Chanel sounds like she's going to be hopping in just a second.
I want a freeze dryer to freeze dry like.
I really want a freeze dryer.
We could like freeze dry meat. We should
freeze dry eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never tried freeze drying, but we do vacuum seal a lot. I love our vacuum sealer.
You can dehydrate your eggs, but apparently it affects the flavor. But the freeze dried eggs apparently taste like eggs when you rehydrate them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So would you do them just whole, or how would you freeze dry them? Liquefy them?
I think you scramble them. It's pretty much either way you do it, you scramble it.
And then it would just be a
'Cause you wanna get
powder
it-
and then,
Yeah, because you want to get a consistent layer when in
Yeah.
the trays that you put them in. So the
Mhm.
difference between dehydrating it is they said that you can still use them. It's a valid way of storing eggs, but they recommend that you use dehydrated eggs for baking because it'll
Mhm.
hide the flavor. Versus if you're going to eat like eggs, like scrambled eggs, or if you're going to make some kind of a dish, they recommend using the freeze-dried eggs because they taste like eggs.
Mm,
The freeze dryer doesn't affect the flavor like dehydrating does, apparently.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but a freeze dryer is minimum like $4,000, I
Oof.
think. Harvest Right or something like that.
Yeah.
Freeze dryers.
How long, I mean, I haven't ever looked into freeze drying, but how long does it take to freeze dry something? Like, is it hours or days?
It's
or-
hours.
2,300, 2,400.
Oh, wow.
Harvest right is 2,400.
Oh, that's not bad. Yeah, 2,300 is not too bad.
I
If
mean,
you're
it
gonna,
would,
for the amount of eggs that we produce, I mean, we
Yeah.
could almost do we could almost bag those up and sell a product of just like freeze dried eggs.
absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah,
way better. I mean, if people aren't
Mhm.
buying eggs, but rather than letting them go bad, that'd be a great way of recuperating our money.
Mhm.
well, and I just know too, like, we have survival food. And
The US food
And
bucket.
if you've ever tried those things, they are just packed full of disgusting salt and they taste like terrible. I'm like, I would rather have freeze-dried eggs that I vacuum seal and they could probably last forever, right? Like, is there, like, I'm sure, like, that stuff has a shelf life of, I think, what, 7 years usually, but
Yeah,
I wonder
stuff
how
that's
long
stored right usually
freeze-dried.
has a shelf life between 2 years and 40 years, depending on
Yeah.
what it is. So like
Yeah.
beans and grains, you can get up to 40 years.
Yeah.
Stuff that there are things that can spoil. So I just learned that brown rice, because it has fat in it, spoils.
Mm.
So I think that's got like 6 months to a year shelf life.
Mm.
Same thing with brown sugar, because of the molasses in it. The molasses will spoil over a period of time. So
Yeah.
there are things that do spoil, but that's why you'll see in a lot of those like buckets that are like, this
Yeah.
will feed, 4 people for, a week.
Right.
It's a lot of grains. It's like
Yeah.
oatmeal, macaroni and cheese,
Yeah.
stuff like that. I want to find a source to get like MREs, like the
Yeah.
military stuff that's just like really good food. Like it's got like freeze dried meat and stuff in it.
Yeah. Yeah, the hikers packs that I've seen at like REI and stuff have the MREs
Yeah.
that have the meat in it.
I know a lot of the preppers that I watch, they have their own, they're affiliated with people that
Yeah.
sell different stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think we just found a topic to talk about. Is like, how do you prepare
Yeah.
for like food and grain storages, or for your animals,
Yeah.
or
talk
yourself,
about,
or yourself.
Yeah. So there's Sri Lanka
Mhm.
right now is having a huge food crisis. China, believe it or not, is having even though in their stockpiling,
Mhm.
they've told their people to start stockpiling food. But the problem is in a certain there's 13 million Chinese that were locked down for COVID again because of Omicron. They're
Mhm.
starving. Like they've smuggled video out of people on their roofs with signs like "Send us food."
Oh, right, because don't they literally like lock them in their apartments, like they can't go anywhere?
They can't go anywhere, and
Yeah.
and the people who weren't prepared
Yeah.
don't have any food, and they're going to start starving to death.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I am grateful that at least, we have food services that will deliver groceries to your house, and
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
can
but
go.
it's funny, I was talking to my mom the other night because she's also been preparing, and my dad thinks she's just lost her mind because she's like, he saw what she was storing. He's like, how much have you spent on that? She's like, about $3,000. She's like, why? And she's like, have you not watched anything? Have you not listened? Are you not paying attention to anything going on in the world? He's just completely oblivious. He's like, I can still go to the grocery store and buy my cheesecake and coffee. And it's like, yeah, but you know what? That store could be emptied out overnight and
Yeah.
there may not be any services to refill it. What are you going to do then?
Right, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, bad stuff going on around the world.
Yeah.
And
How's your-
2022, I think, is really going to be the worst.
Yeah.
Because given the signs that we're seeing about like food shortages, increase in prices, like this water rights thing's going to kick in next year. It's nuts. I don't even know what we're going to do. Where it's going to get, I think it's going to get to a point where we can't feed our chickens. And what do you feed them with? It's like we don't have any grass that we've grown for them to live off of.
Yeah.
Start growing bugs. Grow bugs, feed them bugs, mealworms.
There you go.
We need to get the black soldier flies.
What are those? Aren't those what eat the?
No, they grow like faster, like mealworms, a lot of protein.
Do they? Yeah.
Get the red worm going.
Yeah, we got a lot of red worms if they don't die off in this freeze in our manure pile. Yeah, that's something we need to figure out.
Yeah.
That's a tricky one.
How to store animal feed, because we're currently working on storing our own food.
Yeah.
Long term, let alone the animals.
Yeah, I mean, everything, I mean, it's going to affect everything, right? Like the price increases next year on corn and soy. I don't know about wheat.
Has already gone up so much. It's almost not even worth raising the chickens anymore because nobody will pay more for them.
Right.
Cost of food to feed them costs so much.
I think that's going to change dramatically in 2022. That's one of the things that I saw as a consistent theme when I was reading about the food shortages is the people in the city are going to be affected the most because they're going to get sticker shock when they realize that they have to spend like all the money they make in a day just to eat. Just because.
Oh, wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we've talked about is, so there's a lot of the countries where we import food from, like corn and rice and beans and stuff like that are suffering massive food shortages. Even like Sri Lanka is having massive food shortages partially because they were making this switch from, I don't know how to word it. They were switching over to organic fertilizer and stuff like that. And the transition has caused an issue with the fertilizer, but it's also caused an issue with producing. So there's going to be across the board in all the countries, there's going to be like, they're saying it's going to be like 15 to 25% less food exported from countries where we get food from. And then at the same time, those same countries are dealing with food shortages, even in like China, to where China is storing like, I didn't realize this until today, but China is storing 50% of the world's grain, beans and lentils and grain and stuff like that. They have 50% of the world's storage. And I don't know if they're exporting it, what they export to the United States, but then combine that with what the crap that's going on in the United States. Lisa mentioned the water rights, like Busy Farms. Yeah, they the state for no reason has restricted their water rights, preventing them from growing what they normally grow. So there's an artificial hindrance to farmers from actually growing food locally. So combine all of that with when it hits in 2022, when we get through the reserves and start dealing with these prices, food is going to go through the roof.
Yeah. Well, and even
that water rights being taken away.
Yeah, I mean, even to that point, Greg, like even if we are importing more from those countries, the shipping containers aren't getting to the ports quick enough because there's not enough workers. So most of the food is going bad before it even gets into the port.
Yep.
So it's like a double whammy at this point.
Double, triple, and quadruple whammy.
So the production being exported and imported into the US is going to be down. And then you figure like, I don't know, spoilage, which is increased because the ships are staying out to sea longer.
Yep.
And it's not getting to the stores quick enough. So I don't know if that's 50% or 30%. I'm not sure what the spoilage percentage is at this point. Yeah. But like, there you go right there.
Yeah. And then you have like the local farmers who are being literally prevented from growing. What are they going to do if they water and grow anyway? Are they going to throw them in jail?
I don't know.
Fine them into oblivion.
I think
I'd probably fine them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't they say that Busy could buy it for an astronomical price?
Yeah.
Like
more it was like a millions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and on top of that, guess who's going around buying a lot of the bare land around the United States?
Yeah.
You know, Mr. Dr. Bill Gates
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
is now a farmer
Yep.
Mhm.
Buying up
and
land.
a doctor.
I'm sure
and a-
they've got all the water rights. That's probably where the water rights are going.
Mhm.
Because if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong about this, but they were saying it was due to the reserve. Because there's so many new neighborhoods that they're building, they wanted to make sure that there was a proper reserve of water to feed those homes. So it's like, it's a future thing. It didn't even have to do with like currently what's going on. It's just like,
Well, with him, it's his own well. It's
Yeah.
not even like he's not even on city water. They just told him he couldn't use his well to water his
Yeah.
stuff.
Greg, it's on my
Is
property.
it aquifer rights?
yeah,
Is that what they're going after, is the aquifer rights?
Yep.
So he can use his well, but the problem is he can only use it for so much consumption. They'll put a meter on it and monitor it
yep.
Yeah.
and then determine, yeah.
Even though it's his well. I've heard he's not the only one, because when I went to get hay last time at mall, he said that a lot of the hay farmers on the east side are having the same problem. And then I've also heard on some Idaho horse forums that Idaho hay farmers are having the same problem, where they're turning off they're not letting them use their wheel line, the canals
Wow.
to pull the food out
Oh,
or the water out to water their crops.
I wonder
So
why they can't use the canals.
Because they don't want them to be low on water as their excuse. But I'm wondering if there's other.
There's an artificial hindrance.
Yeah.
It seems like they're doing this intentionally. And
Well, it's just weird that they all the same year decided that, okay, you can't farm, because the hay shortage this year was like, even through Idaho, like I heard of people from Idaho coming over here to get hay, which was weird, because usually Idaho, like when I was there 20 years ago, our hay was like twice as much as what we paid for hay in Idaho, the hay here. And Idaho hay was like, I'd pay like $60 a ton. And here we were paying like 120 to 150 a ton at that time.
Yeah.
So, and now it sounds like this year they were coming here to get hay because weren't able to produce it with the water shortage, with the water shortages or water limitations.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, from what I do know from my family, it's they didn't have it even on the east side. The shortage that was happening was the drought. That the biggest issue for them not able to produce the amount that they normally do is due to the drought, and not all of their fields are on irrigation. So like my family's fields, only out of the 800 acres, I want to say maybe 400, if that, maybe 300 is irrigated for alfalfa. And the rest is based on the weather. And there's been such drought between California, pretty much the whole West Coast, that's what I was told. And my aunt works for the Department of Agriculture for Washington State. And that's what I was told, was that the drought itself between all the states surrounding us was due to the weather, that they just didn't have the irrigation to be able to water and produce more. So that's where we had so much of an issue.
Well, at least in eastern Idaho, you can't even, I don't know about the western side, but the eastern side, you can't even grow hay without irrigation.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, yeah, very possible. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that they definitely had irrigation issues. But I swore that Gene Mall, who was telling, I swear he said that other people were having the same issues that on the east side of Washington, we're having the same issues that Busy's having with them not renewing their aquifer rights.
And it could be.
Yeah.
And it also depends on, because my dad's well is on an aquifer, but he owns the aquifer. So there's definitely like, there's so many, the state is a pain in the butt when it comes to dealing with water rights. He fights them every year. And with the drought we were having, that's probably why they're having issues with them using their irrigation canals and their irrigation lines and the canals, because they want to make sure that there is enough water on those aquifers to be able to supply water to the state. that would be my guess. That's probably why they're telling them they can't, because we didn't have enough water coming in.
Yeah.
With Busy, from what I understand with Busy, because I did some research on it, it sounds like his was even like, I can't even believe that it's legal for them to own because his farm was there before they even set up the city water and everything. Like he had as well prior to that. So I find it amazing that they can even, I think he has lawyers that are trying to look into it to find out if it's even legal for them to take away his water rights.
Yeah,
yeah, all I know is the aquifers are really like with my dad, the aquifers is a run, depending on where the aquifer is running off of. So like my dad's is running directly off of Mount St. Helens. They're able to trace it and it's coming specifically from Mount St. Helens. So again, it depends on how, like who owns Mount St. Helens. Is it federal? Is it, so I think it kind of depends on where that aquifer is coming from. That then determines how much of a right you have to that aquifer. But I could be wrong. But I know that that's where my dad has been lucky, is because it's coming directly from Mount St. Helens, which likely doesn't lose water. But if it's coming off other lakes and streams that aren't coming from a direct aquifer of a mountain, who owns that? It's kind of like the Columbia River. It's split between the two states, but I think federally is owned it's federal land, if I'm not mistaken, as far as the river between the two states.
I wonder if there's something we shouldn't, because we have 4 acres over here. I wonder if there's something we should try this year to grow over there that would help us feed the birds and the horses.
I think it's too wet. I don't think, because we can't even get out there. We wouldn't even be able to get out there if we tried to grow like hay or anything. It's too wet. We couldn't even cut it because the tractor would get stuck.
Yeah.
Cranberries.
Yeah.
Cranberries, yeah. So we need a high irrigation crop.
That takes a lot of water.
There's like so much water because our neighbor's pasture like drains into ours, and it's like there's so much water right now running through it. It's great. It's like a river running through our pasture.
Not to get all weird about this, but I'm wondering also, not to get conspiratorial, but I wonder if it has to do with Biden's carbon emission offsets bill for farmers. I'm just looking it up right now, but part of that bill is reducing use of fertilizer. And
interesting.
And if the aquifers are federal, like especially like what Chanel is saying too, he's tasked the USDA with making sure farmers are carbon positive footprint or something.
Right.
So I wonder if that has to do with that.
Man, it's just like a perfect poop storm that they're brewing up there. It's just like nobody's gonna be able to eat. The cities are gonna be the worst.
Yeah, I'm looking at articles right now trying to see I don't know if that's an accurate statement or if this is just something completely different, but I do know that part of his Green New Deal affects the farming community a lot. So I'm just curious if that also has to be a part of that.
Could be. Wouldn't surprise me.
I was gonna say it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Chanel, are you guys stockpiling at least like 6 months worth of food?
We got enough meat to last us a year.
Okay, so we'll trade with you.
Yeah, so we'll trade you. We got the grains, you'll have the meat, so we'll bring over the beans and lentils.
Between the full cow we have in the freezer to the 3 boar goats to the 2 pigs, the only thing we're limited on is the chicken. So you got that.
Chicken.
So I mean,
you got
We'll trade
chicken.
chicken for beef.
Yeah.
We got a freezer full of chickens from our
Probably
meat
raise
chicken.
more this year because the chickens are way easier than the turkeys.
We need bigger freezers. We need to like just fill our garage with freezers.
But
I know we were saying that too.
upsets my stomach. I really need to go beef, but I can't raise my own beef.
I know. Yeah.
We have friends who are cattle farmers, so we instead of raising, just because from the monetary side of raising just 1 or 2 cattle, it's just not, it doesn't pencil out if you were to just buy a whole cow or 2 from a cattle farm because of the expense to raise 1 or 2. If you had, like a herd of at least 6 or more, then it would probably pencil itself out, especially if you have buyers. But it's just like horses, they eat a ton.
Yeah, so we should just go buy from Tom.
Yep.
Or from Tara, but probably Tom.
Yeah. I think we'll probably be the last ones to go. It'll probably be the city. They're going to be hit the hardest because the supply chain and the food prices are going to get ridiculous. And I think the farmers in the outskirts will probably be fine because I don't know, how long do you think we have? We usually have at least like 1 to 2 months worth of food to feed our animals on hand.
Lately, we've been down to only a month worth because I've been having to buy it again. I'm running out by the end of the month.
Yeah. So assuming we were to run out of food, our option would be we'd have to butcher everything and put it in the freezer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
And then he needs freezer space.
I don't know if we got enough freezer space.
I know, that's what we kept butchering, and then we're like, crap, we need another freezer. Like we have no room. We weren't thinking this out.
Yeah, we have a ton of roosters that need to be butchered still from last year.
Yeah. We'll start getting, so assuming that like food supplies are completely shut down, nobody in the cities are preparing. So they're going to start coming out here. We could probably sell them for the first couple of months for ridiculous prices. $10,000 for a rooster.
No, we still have leftover. We still have leftover turkeys too.
Pay off my house.
Like,
right?
What, an extra like 8 hens I would need to get rid of.
Wow. Yeah.
The thing I want to consider, we've always said it, but I'm not a green thumb. I'm not great at it. Would be trying to do a greenhouse and trying to do at least have a year, like have a way of growing year round. Maybe not everything, but even.
I think we need to talk to our neighbor again because she has the hydroponics. Like,
yeah,
and she
hydroponics is the way to go. Yeah,
and it's been really. She's kind of. It sounds like she's kind of burnt out on it. She's like, it's cost her a lot of money to fix it because it had a lot of issues. I don't know if it's finally up and running again, working properly for her.
Yeah.
But she was really disappointed in it last time we talked to her. But we really want to go over and like talk to her and tour it because I can't grow anything.
Well, we
except
could
for eggplant.
We could if we were to fence off an area in the fields.
Odd.
I think we could grow. I think we should do that this year. Everybody should do that. Porch gardens, and if you've got any land, you should grow something.
Because I do not have time to tend a garden.
Well, it might be the only way.
Right, that's the other thing. Is, oh man, like our zucchini and stuff turned out like they were so large because of 1 week at fair. You come back and it's like the size of my children, and I'm like,
wow,
I don't have time for this.
I only got 2 zucchini, so I didn't have that problem. But my eggplants, I got a ton of eggplant. But it's like, that's the only thing I can consistently grow is eggplant. I'm like, of all things.
Yeah.
Tomatoes are what we've been having issues with.
And zucchini, I cannot grow them. But eggplant, my eggplant is happy.
I'll have to man up and grow a garden.
Mom is usually pretty good with the tomatoes. I tried cucumbers a couple of years and it just never, our yard just didn't get warm enough for cucumbers.
Yeah, I can't grow tomatoes either. My tomatoes have always failed.
Yeah.
Except
they did good at our old house in the city, but not in the country. And yet my neighbors can grow tomatoes. Well, one can, the other one can't. And in the same elevation and the same, I don't know. And we have alpaca poop.
They need full sun. You got to get like 8 to 10 hours a day of sunshine. That's where we were having issues with.
Well, and ours were pure sun from morning till sunset.
Yeah.
Because it's shaded out here.
Yeah, but
backyards. That's why we need
to do it in the field. Our field gets light, plenty of light.
Yeah.
And we've got all kinds of poops for fertilizer.
Yeah.
Hey, that's what we should ask is find out from other farmers that are good at greenhousing and gardening and get tips. Especially like the one here that's in Camas, Washougal that I was just at and did the walkthrough with the Get Together Farm.
Yes.
That I did. He'd be a good resource to talk to.
I wonder if
She's
we
got
could
a
go
green
on
thumb.
Zoom call. We could just do a Zoom call and just make that part of our video.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm sure he would, especially since he's been down from his surgery.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, he's functional, but it's just, he had knee surgery, so you're not
Yeah.
exactly walking around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my sister-in-law, her family's Russian and they are so good at growing everything. Because her dad, I mean, immigrated from Russia, especially when they had a hard time with like food and stuff. So they always grow their food. But he's super good at growing tomatoes, and he told us the trick, like of how to get the tomatoes to grow. And it basically you, once they start growing and producing fruit, you just starve them out of water. Like you still water them, but you water them less frequently.
Interesting.
And Tom always overwaters.
The only tomatoes that ever
watering your
produced fruit
tomatoes.
since the birds dropped.
Yeah, ours never produced fruit is the problem. The only ones that ever gave us fruit was the ones that were volunteer tomato plant. And like, we never took care of that thing. It was just like, it was like a weed at the edge of my flower garden. And I was like, oh, I think that's a tomato. I'll just leave it. And it grew, it gave us so many tomatoes, but ever since then, like we've tried to grow tomatoes after that. I cannot get any fruit.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Ours will grow, but they just stay green. I can't get them to turn red.
Yeah, you have to stop watering them, is what my sister-in-law says.
And they're on drippers, so
yeah,
I wonder if that might be.
Yeah, she said once they start to produce fruit, is when you start to water them less frequently. So it forces them to like grow, I guess, and then that's how like the starvation of the water, I guess, kind of
how
like
do you know? How do you know how much how much is too much and how little is too little? Like where's that fine line when you go to starve them?
Yeah, she said the leaves will start to turn yellow, and she said that's fine. So like we started watering ours like every 2 to 3 days once it produced fruit, and just enough to get the ground wet, not like oversaturating them, but like just enough to make sure that the ground was wet. And then that seemed to help us. I mean,
I might have to give that a shot.
Yeah. The last 2 seasons.
Because our neighbors haven't had no problem.
Yeah. The last 2 seasons, we've had tomatoes produced all the way into freaking October. I mean, it was insane. I was still picking tomatoes before we moved.
Wow.
See, I was like, and I wonder crap. If that is the case, because we used to grow tomatoes at our old house before we had the farm, and it was in the city, and it was up against the tomato plants were, of course, where it was the heat of the day, the whole day, and it was up against the house. But because it was up against the house, I'm wondering if it would dry out the soil more than we would water it, because we didn't have them on a drip system at that point.
Yep.
Now our entire garden is on a drip system. And so I wonder if overwatering is the problem, and that's why they weren't producing. Because they're both in sun the whole day. Like I can't. It doesn't make. That's why we're like, they're in sun.
And that's what, because like we were originally, when we were doing plants, like Tom was like watering them every single day at the end of the day, and my sister-in-law was like, stop watering them. They're not going to turn. You have to make sure like you basically starve them out. And so so that's what we were starting to do. And I mean, we were seriously, like our cherry tomato was still like blowing up in like October. It was crazy.
What would be good crops to grow? Because you'd want to grow something in bulk that you could also like can and preserve. So tomatoes, you can.
We grow garlic.
Garlic lasts a long time,
but it's tricky. Don't let anybody tell you garlic is easy. It's tricky.
I know you've had,
Is it a first year?
5 years and tricky.
How long does it take? How long does it take you to grow garlic? Is it something that produces the first year, or is it like asparagus where you have to establish it?
We grew garlic.
Did we?
Yeah, I failed to do anything with it at the point after I dug it out. It's still hanging in the green room.
Great.
It's like been there for like 2 years.
It's probably dead now.
It's definitely dead now.
Now it's just a decoration.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think it was like, I was like really busy and then like COVID hit and then like we never, it never got replanted. And then, because I was planning on planting it back to grow more the next year. And
Should
then,
do potatoes too.
Oh,
Potatoes.
absolutely. They're any root vegetable, you can just store those in a cool area and they'll last a long time.
and I
Yeah.
think we can grow those in those blue barrels and then you drill
That'd be a
holes
good,
in them.
that'd be a good use for those barrels.
Yeah, I mean, any squash, like in the similar, onions. My mom would do butternut squash, any sort of like.
Those
type of
things last
squash is
forever,
good.
Potatoes
Yeah.
are good because they can feed the cockroaches and the mealworms.
which can feed the birds.
Yes.
So that would be a good backup. Can the birds live purely on a bug diet? So if we were to ramp up growing mealworms, so we could say we grow potatoes, feed the mealworms, and then feed the
We probably
mealworms to
need
all
to
the
get like
bugs.
something, we probably would have to like do some, we might want to get some more like grains like that we could sprout, like the store, like I don't know, oats or something like that we can sprout for them so they'd have some grain still.
Can
'Cause we
you,
could sprout, that's what a lot of people do is they sprout greens for them.
can you grow that to seed though? Because I'd want something renewable. Is there something we could grow that we could like renew? Because potatoes,
Not
you just take the
easily.
ones that start to spoil and cut them up and replant them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you probably have to like double your crop if you were gonna just grow some to sprout so that, and you grow the other half to seed so that you
Oh.
could replant every year.
So what would we grow to seed? Barley?
I don't know, you'd have to put that in the horse pasture somewhere and then like water it and stuff and keep all the animals out
Oh
of
yeah,
it.
that's what I'm saying is
Yeah.
I should do a garden out there to like at least sustain us and some animals.
Yeah. Yeah, most vegetables, you can preserve. My mom used to do those. Green beans are good. What else did we used to? You can make, my cousin and his wife, they would make stew, like beef stew, with the potato and carrot and actually beef chunks and can it. So canning that, preserving it that way, he said it was really good. And so
Yeah.
you could easily do like some of your beef or goat in like some sort of a stew and just seal it, can it, preserve it.
Yeah, we need to get better at canning too.
I got a whole book. I
Yeah.
Vacuum seal.
year. Yeah, vacuum seal is good, but I don't know how long. I would be curious of the shelf life versus like per canning. If
Yeah.
like which one, or you could like.
Well, when you
balance it
freeze, I
out.
don't know, when you freeze it, that's a good question. We vacuum seal and freeze everything. So
We do too, but we usually try to cycle it out within like a year or so. Otherwise it starts to get, But I think with canning, you can it lasts longer. I'm curious. And now that I'm saying that, like, what is the preservation?
Yeah.
right now, like when we canned our beets and our green beans and our pickles, they still had a shelf life. I think it was 18 months to maybe 24, but I think it was close to like 18 months.
Okay.
I wonder if you can freeze dry pickles and beets. I'm sure you
Probably.
can. Can you like, because that
We
seems like
dehydrate a lot.
Dehydrate, yeah. You missed our conversation about freeze drying and dehydrating. We want to buy one of those freeze dryers for $2,300 because apparently your food tastes a lot better when you freeze dry versus when you just dehydrate.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, we do like the garlic, we would dehydrate so that we can grind it up into garlic powder. So any of the small cloves that we don't seed or we don't sell for food, we dehydrate and then we make garlic powder out of. And then same with goat milk. So I use it for making lotion, well, mostly whip balms and body balms, but also to have extra milk on hand, powdered milk on hand. So I dehydrate it and then grind it to have it on hand.
Wow.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. What kind of dehydrator do you use?
Just one of the like most
Just
common one.
The round one with the different shelves. That's one we have.
What?
We don't, we have a square one.
Oh, the square one. We have the square one that's got like the racks that you insert.
Trays.
Yeah.
We just have the circle one that has the trays that stack on top of each other.
That's one we have too. Tom does his own jerky.
Those things are really popular.
Yeah.
Ours is square and the trays come out. It doesn't seem
Yeah.
to work very well. I tried to dehydrate like herbs and stuff out of my garden, and they all molded. And I did them for like twice the time because they like wouldn't dry.
Mm.
It raises bread really well though. That's pretty much all I use it for now.
So update, vacuum sealed frozen foods, it says can last shelf life of 2 to 3 years, while the shelf life of home canned goods is ultimately forever, as long as the seal remains intact.
Wow.
Oh.
So
Our seal was intact, but they didn't taste so great.
what did you try? The beets?
Beets, uh-huh.
Yeah, it says its best before date is usually 1 year, but it says that is not intended as a date for safety purposes, but rather an inventory management date to help you ensure that your pantry remains stocked and high, whatever. The long and short of it is, in theory, the seal on your home canned goods should be good forever, as long as your seal is good and the contents are safe. Forever.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So the more you know.
Thank
Start canning.